Got to get a sound check here. I forgot to set up my mic. Looks good. So, welcome to day 2 of our coverage of the war in the Middle East. Let me try to get organized a little bit here. There is a heat map for the U.S. stock market. The U.S. stock market is going to open in 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes. Now, we've already got a preview, and I'll come back to this heat map in a second. At the moment, we've got the Dow down 1%, S&P down about 1%, NASDAQ down about 1%. Oil is up about 10%, which is actually lower than it was. Last night when the pre-market opened, oil went as high as, I think, 112. Let me zoom out a little bit there. There's a 5-year chart for oil. So we've got a headline, oil breaks $100 per barrel, markets are falling. Both of those are still true. I might have to update that headline when the markets open. But oil did break $100 per barrel and the markets are falling. That's where we're at. So if you look back, this is a 5-year chart. Oil is priced at the same level that it was at the beginning of the war in Ukraine, July 2022. Yeah, July 2022. That's where the oil is. The difference is the angle of that chart, the trajectory. It's vertical. In fact, let me... There is Sal Frodo joining us in the chat on news.tangle.com. Love to see you, Sal Frodo. Happy Monday to you. Let me see here. I haven't tested all of this. Let me see. That doesn't look great. That looks pretty good. Hey, Sal Frodo. There's chat. Thanks for the like, Sal Frodo. Let's see. This looks okay. If there are any rocket or missile launches that are targeted to Israel, we'll get an alert. We'll cover that as it happens. Let me just go back to this. So 2 minutes until the stock market opens. My plan today is, so I do want to cover the opening of the stock market trading. I want to see what the initial response is for everything that happened over the weekend. And just to recap the weekend in the next 2 minutes, there was escalation both of words and action. So the U.S. and Israel were accused, probably justifiably so, for striking oil refineries within Iran. Iran responded back, if you do that to us, we're going to do it to our neighboring countries. They did. I believe that refineries were struck in Bahrain, possibly Kuwait, Saudi, and possibly Oman. And the response from those countries to this crisis, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, essentially closed. So oil tankers can't get out of the Persian Gulf. As a result, these countries are having to stop their refining because they don't have anywhere to store the oil, the refined oil product. So all that is playing into the markets. Now, I wonder how fast, I guess the oil price is already updating from the pre-market. So I expect it's going to transition well to cash market open. And where's it going to go? We've got 1 minute. Thanks for the tips, Alfredo. Thanks for the 50G. I appreciate that. All right, markets are open. However, there's a 10-minute lag on this oil price. Let's see what we see here. There is no lag on these. On the Dow Jones, the S&P, both down about 1%. Yeah, oil's still lagging 10 minutes. So this is interesting. Gold is down. Let me try to finish this thought here. Gold is down. Bond yields are up. And crypto is up. Okay. So let's, and the FX, yeah. So the dollar is getting stronger. The dollar is getting stronger. Now that applies to everything I just looked at, gold, bonds, and FX, but it does not apply to crypto. So crypto is writing its own story here today. Don't have an explanation for that. Maybe we'll look for one later on. So gold is down because the dollar is up. The dollar is up because yields are up. And the exchange rates are favoring the dollar. Now, I don't know which one. I suppose that it's the bond rates going up that are causing the dollar to go up. When rates go up, the currency strengthens. And that, so I guess gold is reacting to that. Let's check the heat map. I have to reload this. So this was showing colors. I suppose it was showing colors in the pre-market. There may be a delay on this one, so I'll have to check back on that one. See what oil's doing. There you go. It's under 100. It's over 100. It's over 100. It's up 10% since Friday. It's up yesterday afternoon, East Coast time. When the price of oil spiked higher than it is now, it was up 60% since the war in Iran started, which is about seven trading days, maybe less. 60%. Salfrodo's in the chat on news.tangle.com. It says, I wonder if Trump filled our strategic oil reserves before going to war. He has been. He has been. We just saw a chart of that yesterday. Let me see if I can pull it up. We do need to talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR. We're going to talk about that. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling fast. I know that this chart came out yesterday, so I'm just ripping through to try to find it. It shows the inventory levels in the SPR. Here it is right here. There you go, Salfredo. So this pink color area, this covers both COVID and the war in Ukraine. So the Biden administration pulled inventory out of the SPR to try to manage the price to the consumer. That's this. And then here is Trump refilling it. I talked about this yesterday because, in my mind, the strategic, and that is a key word, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is not meant to be touched unless it's required to keep the lights on. And not only the lights on for industry and consumers, but also for the military in a time of dire crisis. So I don't think it's a great idea. In fact, I think it's a terrible idea to use the strategic petroleum reserves to try to manage the price of gasoline at the pump. It doesn't have a huge impact. You could drain that SPR entirely, and it might lower the price of gasoline at the pump by 20 cents temporarily. And then you don't have a strategic reserve. So I wouldn't touch that. Now, the reason that I was going to mention the SPR today is one of the headlines on the left side of the stream. The G7 countries, did I spell discusses wrong? Who knows? The G7 countries are currently meeting right now to discuss using the SPRs in each of their countries to try to mitigate the oil crunch from the war in Iran. Bad idea. Very bad idea. Let's see. I have a list here of the G7 countries. I'm just going to pull this up. The G7, the group of seven, is Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US. Then it says, plus the European Union. I'm not sure what that means. And then it says below, it says that the European Union as a body is a non-enumerated member. I don't know what that means. I am going to, here, you can watch me do this. Let me put up something for you here. I guess we can look at this. We can look at this while oh, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Okay, so I'm going to make a post on Tangled. G7 countries discussing releasing oil from each of their strategic petroleum reserves to mitigate market disruptions to the oil market worldwide. I'm going to post that from news. And the reason I'm doing that, let me put a badge on there. I guess finance too. The reason I'm doing that is because it's going to train Luna, the AI bot. It's going to keep it current on news. So I'm going to try to do that while I stream today. All right. I'll keep an eye on that. I've got a poll. I guess I'll show it. It doesn't look great there. It doesn't look great. But I can see it. So I'll tell you what it says, then I'll fix that layout later on. So 2 days ago, here on news.tangle.com, we published a poll: who benefits from the Iran war? Choices are Americans, Iranians, Israelis, Ukrainians, and the world. And Israel, according to the people who voted on this poll on Tangle.com, is the main beneficiary with about 54% of the votes, Israel. I'm a little surprised that nobody, not even a single person, picked Ukraine, which on the surface is not understandable, but under the surface is a little more understandable. So, Ukraine is fighting with Russia, and Russia has been deploying drones, low speed, low cost, low yield drones, but lots of them. And those drones originate from Iran. Iran developed those drones. However, I don't believe that Russia is being supplied physical product from Iran. I think that Iran just licensed the blueprints to Russia for Russia to manufacture on their own. So the knee-jerk reaction could be, well, if Iran is using all their drones in the Middle East, that means fewer drones going to damage Ukraine. But that may not be the case. May not be the case. And then the world, so 15% of people say the world, in the entire world benefits from the Iran war. Now, I was a little, I'm caught off guard a little bit. So you've got this major military operation going on in the most volatile part of the world by one superpower and one other nuclear power, US and Israel. And it's not entirely clear what provoked this war. I mean, I know that there's been tension between Israel and Iran, but that should be a regional issue, not a world issue. I know that the US supports Israel, but there needs to be limitations to that. And I don't see a lot of people in the mainstream media questioning, why is this happening? It seems as if we're still in the phase, maybe it's like a honeymoon period with the media and the administration on this. But it seems as if the media is reporting on what's happening, letting it play out, and not questioning why it's happening. I'm questioning why it's happening. I'm questioning that. And anyone who's going to come in and say, well, it's to distract away from the Epstein files, there is some truth to that. Yesterday we showed a graph of Google searches for the Epstein file, and it fell off a cliff. When it looked like it started to fall off the cliff during the Venezuela actions, it's still falling off a cliff during the Iran actions, and now Trump is saying Cuba's next. I did say yesterday that I don't think that Trump spends any time in his life worrying about the Epstein files. Not that he should or shouldn't, I just don't think that he does. Face value, take that for what it's worth. Let's see if we can get this stock map going back. There's just nothing happening on there. Let me find another one. All right, this is tradingview.com. And that is a heat map of the US stock market. So the way that these work, you've got these blocks, like the one that's highlighted there and then there. So you've got different industry segments. This is finance. You've got tech or electronic, tech services, retail, health, energy, utilities, and on and on and on. So it's broken down into blocks of market segments. And then each company within that segment, and this is the S&P 500. So there should be 500 squares or rectangles on this chart. Each company in the S&P 500 is assigned to one of the rectangles, and the size of the rectangle indicates the market cap of that company relative to the rest of the market. And then red is going down and green is going up. So Nvidia's down 3%, Apple's down 1%. The electronic tech segment as a whole has a red tone to it. Tech services is a little more green, but the big boys are red or flat. Health is Lily's up. So that segment, there are some winners in that segment, but overall that segment's down. I mean, all of it, overall, all of them are down. Even energy. Here's energy. Is flat. Now, about an hour ago, energy was the only green thing on the heat map. It just got a lot more red. The whole map just got more red, except energy. There you go. I think it just caught up. So everything's going down. Everything's losing unless you're pumping oil, moving oil, refining oil, selling oil. Then you're having a good day. That's where we're at on the stock market 15 minutes after market open. Let's see what else is going on. I'm just going to leave that heat map up while I look around for other updates for you guys. Let's see, what is the S&P at right now? So the S&P is at 6,655, okay? Right there. The S&P is at 6654, okay? Here we've got a headline. JP Morgan sees the S&P dropping to 6270. So that is, call it 400 points down. It's what would that be? 8%. Yeah, about 8%, roughly 8%. So that's JP Morgan going bearish. All right, I'm gonna punch the breaking news. Here we've got a headline. Iran says no room for talks as the U.S. seeks to partition country, take oil. New hardline Ayatollah takes command. So it says a younger, reportedly more hardline Ayatollah takes command as the regime stability continues. This newly announced Ayatollah is the son of the previous Ayatollah, which sounds more like a monarchy than a republic, but they're doing their thing. Trump says he looked at the oil prices. He said, I think this is a post of his from Truth. Short-term oil prices will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over. It's a very small price to pay for USA and the world. All caps, only fools would think differently. If you think differently, you're a fool. That's what Donald Trump says. He's not wrong. When the crisis in Iran is resolved in most ways imaginable, then yeah, the price of oil is going to fall. It's not the accuracy of the prediction is not the important thing. The fact that Trump is almost entirely responsible for the oil prices going up and then will be entirely responsible for them going back down is probably not something that anyone's going to think is impressive. He's claiming to know how to fix a problem that he himself caused. That's not super impressive. Michael Joseph Radcliffe is in the chat. I was going to suggest, Michael Joseph, I don't know what time that vinyl thing wrapped up today. MJR is over there on the daily, and he's streaming records on Tangle.com. I suppose maybe that stream is over. I was going to suggest, since I'm not doing background music, watch both. Listen to that vinyl thing while you're watching news updates. You can even put me on mute. It's not a bad call. Trump also said, "We'll work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before." Also, very easy to do. You could make Iran bigger, better, and stronger than before with a single autograph. They're sanctioned. They're sanctioned hard. So stop dropping bombs and stop sanctioning, and you just made their economy bigger, better, and stronger. Now, fair play that you don't want to make them bigger, better, and stronger than before, unless they're considered a safer neighbor than they have been considered in the past. That's fair to say. And then again, Iran shuts the door on ceasefire talk possibility, accuses the U.S. of seeking partition. And then CENTCOM, this is now the announcement of the 8th U.S. military member who has died as a result of this. Yesterday was the 7th. The seventh death of a military member from the U.S. yesterday died of injuries that I believe were sustained during the attack that killed the previous 6. Shohana is in the chat. Welcome, Shohana. Water and Fire says, how about the Philippines? Gas was up yesterday and the diesel went up 20%. Yeah, that's happening worldwide. I don't know what the gas prices are. We can look. We'll look in the U.S. So the national average in the U.S. is $3.47 a gallon. There's about 4 liters to a gallon, I believe. So it'd be in the 85-cent range per liter. California always pushes that average up. So $5.20 in California, $4.20 in Oregon, $4.60 in Washington. I don't know about Oregon and Washington. I do know that California has very strict requirements of oil treatments and additives, which increases the cost. They don't want to have pollution in Los Angeles and San Francisco, the Bay Area. And then I think that they also impose a higher tax per gallon than other states do. So 348 or 347, 348, that is the national average. It is up. It's up how much? Can we get a chart? Shahana's complaining that I'm always live while Shahana's sleeping and praying. This is my second stream. On news.tangle.com is my second stream. That's from 2021. Let's see, news. How about that? So here's CBS News. Gas prices in the U.S. are up 26 cents since last week. So that's about 8%. So it's worse in the Philippines, I would say. Diesel went up 20% in the Philippines. Let's see what diesel is. Diesel is the one. Diesel is the one that has the most impact on consumer prices for things. Let's see what this says. This is a website for truckers and freight. Wholesale price of diesel jumped $1 per gallon in a week. That was published on Saturday. So there's a graph going back to 2021, I'd say. Again, it's the level here, the level, I don't know if you can see that. The level's that green bar on the right. And it's the highest that it's been since, looks like late summer or autumn of 2023. So that's not the concerning part. It's the trajectory of the graph that's concerning. It's a vertical line. Sorry about that, Shohana. Sorry about that. I'll keep you in mind as I schedule these streams. Michael Joseph Radcliffe is in the chat on news.tangle.com saying 300 million barrels short of capacity. Is that the SPR? You're talking about the SPR? So yesterday when I was looking at the, let me see if I can go back to that. All right, so here is the, there's the inventory level of the SPR. Now, I think I misread this when I was talking about it yesterday. So the it's saying that there's 0.415 M in the reserve. And I assume that that's 0.415 million. And I also assume it's barrels. So 415,000 barrels. I don't think that that's what it actually is. I think that it's probably 415 million barrels in the SPR. Let me see how much gas does the U.S. use each day? So in 2024, the United States consumed an average of 370 million gallons per day. So 8.9, about 9 million barrels. I believe there's 55 gallons to a barrel. So let's just call it 10 million barrels. So this would imply, if I ignore the labeling on the graph and try to apply common sense instead, it implies that there would be 41 days worth of average consumption of gasoline in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I think that that's more reasonable than saying there is, what would it be? 2 hours worth? I think 40 days is probably more reasonable. Is that what you were talking about, Michael Joseph Radcliffe? Oh, thank you, Shahana. All right. See you later, Shahana. Markets are falling further. Dow Jones down 1.4%, S&P down 1.1%, NASDAQ down 1.1%. Oil's being resilient. Oil at nears makes no difference, $100. Now there is a phenomenon with things like oil and most commodities, if not all, most commodities. If the price goes up too much too fast, then you get what's called demand destruction. So the higher the price goes, the less discretionary usage of that commodity there is. That's demand destruction, and that prevents, or it adds resistance for the price going higher. So like any good market, it's self-regulating. It can be uncomfortable. I mean, we can have oil 120. We are one headline away from another 20% rip. Here's Water and Fire in the chat on news.tangle.com, which is the mainstream and where I'm monitoring the chat, saying Mojtaba Khomeini has newly been sat on the throne for Iran. and further affirmed on the news that they will not surrender. And Water and Fire oh 08's telling us in the chat, China is going to help them soon. So do I think that Trump underestimated them? Well, I don't know about the China thing. I don't know about that. I don't know if they said that. If they said that, I don't know what that means, what help means. As far as the new Ayatollah saying that they will not surrender, I don't put a lot of weight into that. There are countries, dare I say, there are cultures that they say a lot of things that don't actually end up happening. Now, you could say something similar about Trump. Trump can say a lot of things that don't end up happening. Trump may have underestimated them. I guess we'll know if Trump underestimated them. He could either have underestimated Iran or he could have overestimated the might of the U.S. military. And the measurement of either one of those things is if this conflict stretches out longer than, say, 5 weeks. I think 5 or 6 weeks was the upper limit of what he said he thought it could take. He thought that it should take much less than that, maybe 2 weeks, and we are in week 2. As far as the conditions for success from the Trump administration, it's been a bit of a moving target. So back to the justification for this entire action in the first place. The exit, I don't know what the exit strategy is. I don't know if there's a definitive, clear, stable set of objectives. I guess I haven't seen that. So I think it wouldn't be surprising if Trump just wakes up someday and declares mission accomplished, regardless of what was accomplished relative to these vague goals that were set out from the onset. Now, that's just trying to keep it real. I do, boots on the ground is something that most administrations don't want to recognize the possibility or their willingness to put boots on the ground, soldiers in country. Trump took a different approach. He said, I'm not shy about saying that at all. Everything's on the table. It's all on the table. I have heard from alternative sources that many, many more U.S. military units are being mobilized than have been announced. So my sources say that the number of units being mobilized to deploy boots on ground, some ground, I don't know what ground, but it's a bigger number than is being reported. We did talk about yesterday. Let me pull up a map here. Yesterday we talked about this island. I'm going to scroll as smoothly as I can here. So we're in the Persian Gulf here. Iran is on the right. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain are on the left. This island right here, Kark, that is a very small island. That island is about 5 miles long. I believe you can see that there's an airstrip on there. There are some circles. Those are oil storage facilities. This island is where 90% of Iran's oil exports flow through. This is where the boats load up. You can see at least one very large dock with a boat on it. That is where the boats load up with oil and then head off to China. And Trump and the Department of War have said that they're considering taking control of this island. And I don't think that that would be as difficult as many other options involving boots on ground. You could put naval blockade on this island. You could probably take it over with special forces. It's not that big, and that turns off 90% of Iran's current or previous oil revenue. So that's on the table. Let me see what the chat looks like on this side. There's the chat. So anyone watching this is what I'm looking at. That's the chat I'm looking at. I know that it's chopping off the longer messages, but that is just the price we have to pay at the moment. It's the price we have to pay. Throw this widget up there. This is if we hear a sound, and I'm not sure if you'll hear it, but I'll hear it. If there are inbound missiles or rockets to Israel, they're going to show up on this map. So that is ready and waiting for us if necessary. Let's see what else is going on. Oil's back over 100. I'm going to head over to X. Let's see if there's any real-time updates happening. So just to pay respects, I did mention that the 7th U.S. service member died yesterday afternoon. And we now have word that was Sergeant Benjamin N. Pennington, 26 years old, of Glendale, Kentucky. And Sergeant Pennington died of wounds from injuries sustained during an enemy attack on March 1st. Water and Fire is asking the chat, if you are Trump, will you do the same? Will you risk your soldier's life in favor of Israel? I mean, for me, no, I wouldn't. I don't know. It's not clear to me why Israel gets as much support from the United States as it gets. There's two different levels of support. In fact, there's maybe three levels. You've got Look the Other Way, which is related to Israel having a nuclear weapons program and have had for decades, while not admitting it or are living by the same conditions that the other countries that have that do. There's that accommodation. Then there's a soft power accommodation where the U.S. would sell military equipment to Israel and help out occasionally in the defense of Israel. That's kind of the middle ground. And then you've got give them free money, give them free weapons, risk soldiers' lives greatly to their benefit. And I don't know why that is a good option. I mean, Israel is not a poor country. They're a well-run country. They're an intelligent country, sophisticated, and I don't know why they need to get help from the United States to further their ambitions. I don't know. I don't get that. So that's me answering your question, Water and Fire. Everyone else can come in and give their own answer. I'm just scrolling through headlines and trying to avoid AI slop as the main challenge. There's a lot of things that I'm seeing that I could show you or tell you. I just don't think they're very credible. I mean, they're spectacular, but I don't know if they're real. I'll show this. It's more commentary than anything else. Aftar S. Turka, 41 seconds ago, posted on X with what looks like an interview with Major General G.D. Bakshi, who I assume is Iranian. So the question is, why are people calling Iran a terrorist state? And the general saying he's not answering the question directly. He's answering it by asking the question, were the 170 Iranian school children that were killed by the U.S. in an airstrike, were they terrorists too? I think, as soon as one country calls another country a terrorist state, their credibility takes a little bit of a dent in my mind. Iran's calling Israel terrorists and Israel's calling Iran terrorists. They can't both be right. And it's kind of a loaded word. It's, in fact, more than it's a loaded word, it's a legal definition. It's a legal term. Labeling a country a terrorist is a legal term. So it gets overused, I think. Let me go back to the map. That is Karg Island, which is on the list of options for the U.S. to take control of. I'll just leave that there. In fact, you know what I could do? I will put... I'm just going to ruin all my organization. I'm going to do that right now. I'll make this bigger. There's the price of oil. The spokesperson of Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says, our position has not changed. It is our legitimate and legal right to respond to attacks originating from wherever a military attack is launched against the Iranian people. Hard to argue with that. Here's Judica80 in the chat at news.tangle.com saying, hello, everyone. The oil crisis is causing a big problem in Europe, too. Judica is letting us know what's going on in Europe. Do you have anything else for us, Judica? Can you tell us what the price used to be, say, 2 weeks ago, and what it is now? Water and Fire was reporting in from the Philippines that diesel is up 20%. What was it? Very quickly. It was like overnight. Judica says the price of North Sea Brent oil has risen 25% in a day. Analysts say that if the conflict drags on, the price of oil could rise above 120. Yeah. And potentially send the global economy into recession. Yes. Yep. Let's see. Here's Danny in the chat on news.tangle.com saying, as of early March 2026, last week, oil shipments from the Druzhba pipeline to Hungary and Slovakia have been suspended following damage to infrastructure in Western Ukraine. Yeah, there's political tension in Europe with Hungary, and I guess Slovakia too. I don't know as much about Slovakia. but at least Hungary has been they've been the recipient of at least natural gas from Russia, which has been keeping them afloat through the winters. And Hungary is resisting the EU shutting off that pipeline. Now, I believe Russia is also diverting that stockpile possibly to China, so and India as well. Danny says, in short, Russia accidentally bombed it, and Hungary expects Ukraine to allow Russians into Ukraine to fix it. Well, Russians are in Ukraine. I mean, they're just asking them to do a little work, it sounds like. And Slovakia, he says. Now, somebody, was it Fasich or was it Amjad Ali? Maybe it was neither of those two fine young men from Pakistan on our live stream yesterday. I made it through 2 hours of the live stream yesterday. And it seems as if the most important, most noteworthy feedback from that 2 hour stream was, hey, you just streamed for 2 hours and you didn't once mention Danny. It's true. I didn't. Water and Fire 08 says genocide is an extinction of one's race. Since there will be hundreds of children dying during the missile attacks, will this be considered a crime similar to genocide? No, probably not. I mean, who's gonna bring war crime charges against the United States? The UN isn't doing anything. Also, I don't think, I think it's a bridge too far to say that the U.S. intentionally bombed a fully populated school and killed all the kids. I think that's a bridge too far. Now, they could have been careless and reckless, which caused that to happen, but I don't think the intent was there. Yeah, Self-Roto's right. Yesterday was the first show. That was the first show. I don't know anything better than you, Danny. I did not see footage of the explosion. I am very, very careful about what I claim to know. I've got to pull this up. We've got missile alerts. Hostile aircraft intrusion in Gorin, Shtula, Zaret, Hagalil, Evan Menachem, and Arab al-Aramshi in Israel. We've got hostile aircraft intrusion. That generally those are drones. Those are generally drones, and I would expect. Let me scroll out a little, zoom out. I would expect that this is close to the Lebanese border, and I believe yes, it is. I think that black line is the Lebanese border. Judica says the Ukrainians bombed the oil pipeline, and in Germany too. It's possible. Ukraine wasn't Ukraine found to be responsible for destroying the underwater pipeline in the Bering Sea or the Barents Sea to the east of Scandinavia. Guys, on the people watching on Tangled, on news.tangled.com, it's mentioned in the post. Do me a favor if you could, head over to the YouTube channel and sub up on the YouTube channel. What I'm doing with these streams is trying to attract a large audience, and these types of streams are capable of doing that. But I want to attract an audience on the other platforms, X, Twitch, and YouTube, and then use those platforms to introduce people to what's going on over at Tangled. So it'd help out if we got some activity on the YouTube channel that's in the post. And I haven't started streaming on X yet. I wanted to get a couple under the belt simultaneously streaming to Tangled and YouTube. And then as soon as I feel that's going well, then I'll add X and possibly Twitch into the mix. These alerts keep popping up. I have to redo the layout for those alerts. It scrolls down too much. So I don't know what the color. What does the color mean? I know that when there's missiles, like ballistic missiles, the pins seem to be bright red instead of this kind of autumn orange color. The color of my shirt. Thanks, Salfrodo. I knew you would be. Thank you, Salfrodo. I think we started the day yesterday on YouTube with 0 subs. I think we ended with 9. It's a good day, as long as I'm not streaming to an audience size of 0. That's tough. That's a tough look. Oil's up 4% in the last 45 minutes. It's up 10% in 45 minutes. Or sorry, 4%. It's up 4%. I've got to get a better way of finding real-time stuff. I just have to deal with so much slop to find one good headline. Yeah, this is that's just confirmation of what we're showing on the map. I believe that these alerts in northern Israel, I believe that they've been cleared, so that drone has probably been handled. This post on X says, and it's related to this alert, so it's on the confrontation line, Shomera, Zeret, and Evan Menachem, population 6,300. That's what we know about that. Danny says, did you go over the Hormuz Strait? You take a look at it. In fact, let me try something here. I'll show that. So there you go. The white, if you look on the map in the lower left of the stream, the white is the water. The blue color is land, and you've got UAE and Oman on the lower part, and you've got Iran on the upper part. And then that small area where there's as little white as there is anywhere on the map, that is the Strait of Hormuz. That is a choke point that ships must go through to get from the Persian Gulf to open waters. And we're looking at marine traffic. So you can see there are no ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has kind of gone back and forth a little bit on this. They have said that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, that they're not allowing any ships to passage, and they've also said that it's not closed. There has been at least one, possibly 2, oil carriers that have been struck in the Strait of Hormuz. We did receive word, I believe on Friday, that a Chinese oil carrier was allowed passage through the Strait of Hormuz. So it was about the middle of last week, say Wednesday of last week, that the Strait of Hormuz, the 1 or 2 ships were struck, and Iran says don't go through the Strait of Hormuz. And then the insurance carriers, the insurance companies that protect the ships, said you're not driving through there. Not with our insurance. You're not insured. And then Trump came out and said, well, I'll insure everybody. I'll insure everybody. I'll send the U.S. Navy. We'll convey people through. That's obviously not happening. There are no ships in the Strait of Hormuz. What do we have there? Cargo ship. I'm not sure what flag that is. There's a heavy lift. I know you guys can't see this. I'll have to fix that layout. But there's the Da Tung Yun heavy lift vessel. It's a ship that has huge cranes on it. That's parked right there. Actually, it's dry. It's moving at almost 20 knots, but it is hugging the coastline. In fact, that doesn't look like it's in the water. Not sure how accurate that map is. So there you go, Danny. There is the Strait of Hormuz. Here's Trump's got more to say. This is posted on X by War Monitor. Trump Truth Social. Australia is making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran, where they will most likely be killed. Don't do it, Mr. Prime Minister. Give asylum. The U.S. will take them if you won't. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Well, that sure is nice of Donald Trump. Offering asylum to the female Iranian national women's soccer team. I'm going to take a look at this. This is from Jackson Hinkle on X. It's a couple hours ago, breaking American CRAM system. So the CRAM, it's a machine gun. It looks like a laser, but the reason it looks like a laser is that there are tracer bullets being shot, and there's a lot of bullets. Those CWIS and CRAM, I think they unload 600 rounds a minute, so 10 a second, and it ends up looking like that. So they are using that to either hit a drone or an incoming missile. We saw footage of that yesterday as well. I think it was in Kuwait, I think. That's what a CRAM looks like. Oh, so that is that was in Erbil. Let's see where Erbil is. I put a pin on that. Oh, Erbil right there. It's in Iraq. As soon as I zoom out, it's going to be harder to see. Well, let's see where this is. So it's about right there. It's very close to the northern border of Iran. It is in northern Iraq. That's where that shoot down took place. Judika says no. What is it, Judika? What happened? Here's a report by Laxman Bishnoi on X saying that the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, came under rocket attack on March 7th. That was Saturday. First time since the U.S.-Israel-Iran war escalated. The CRAM defense system was activated, firing red tracers to intercept incoming projectiles. Video shows it in action over the city at night. No casualties reported. Iran Voices News says the American CRAM system may defend their bases, but it cannot shield them from Iran's precision strikes or deter our defenders. Any attempt to attack Iranian soil will be met with swift and decisive retaliation. Sovereignty cannot be blocked by technology. It's a lot of hyperbole. Iran's precision strikes, I don't know how precise they are. Here's a post that says every fifth bullet, so 20% of the bullets fired by that CRAM are tracers. Those are the ones you can see red. They are a tracer round, at least it used to be like this. A tracer round is just a normal bullet, but they coat the bullet tip with something like phosphorus or some element or chemical that when the bullet is traveling through the air and the atmosphere heats up the surface of the bullet, it produces light. That's what a tracer is. It's so you can see where the bullets are hitting. It's a visual aid. War Monitor on X is saying, and I do trust War Monitor. I do trust them. Missile launches from Iran towards central Israel now. We are not seeing that on the alert map. The last alert we saw was aircraft intrusion on the Lebanese border, which is a drone. So we have not seen any alerts on the map yet for missiles from Iran. Danny says, what do you know about the new Ayatollah? Well, the report so far is, first of all, it's the son of the old Ayatollah. And second, they are saying that he was groomed by the IRGC, which is the Iranian military, and is a hardliner. So based on that, you would expect that whatever policies the previous Ayatollah was laying out, the new Ayatollah is going to do at least that, if not more. There we go. These are rocket alerts, red alerts, just north of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So these, I mentioned yesterday, the alerts on this map, they start out covering broad areas. And as the projectile gets closer and closer, the cone shrinks, the potential target. It becomes more clear where it's going to land. And also, as we talked about yesterday, the munitions that Israel and the U.S. use to provide air defense, in Israel, the Iron Dome, those missiles that they use are very expensive, much more expensive than, say, a drone costs. And so if the Iron Dome system, which is what's going to engage these rockets or missiles, if it detects that the impact is going to be in a vacant field, for example, it doesn't engage. It doesn't waste itself defending against that. These are in the Bekaa, Sharon, Yarkon, Shvela, Dan, and Lachish area. Now, I expect that these alerts are going to tighten up. There's another alert right up on the Lebanese border. So now we've got two items going on, north and central. Danny, what we also know about the Ayatollah is that as soon as he was announced, Israel, the IDF basically said, well, he's good as dead. They said, we're going to kill him. They didn't say we're going to try to kill him. They said, we're going to kill him. So we've got these alerts are focusing on the Tel Aviv area. Yeah, IL Red Alert on X, they announced a minute ago, new missile launch detected from Iran. Now, I don't know. I don't think it's typical for missile launches to happen at this time of day. So most of those have cleared now. Let's see if we have this. There we've got these are not great cams, and it's very difficult to get good live feeds from Israel and Iran. Israel, because the best cameras, which are run by, say, Reuters and AP and AFP, they have been instructed by the Israeli government to turn the camera off as missiles are coming in. So Israel does not want to broadcast the strikes. And Iran, they basically don't have any internet. So if you're on the ground in Iran, you can't get the footage out so easily. So we're looking at, we've got these feeds from Intel cams on YouTube, and we appreciate them for these feeds. But it's tough to see much of anything. These are nowhere near as good of the quality as the cameras that are getting turned off. You can see, let's see, it's saying, I don't know if this is, let me reload this. Let me make sure that we're watching it live. Yeah, we weren't watching it live. That's live. Okay, so we've got southern Lebanon on the top left. We've got North Israel on the top right. We just had alerts in North Israel twice. In the middle, we've got Haifa. To the right of that, we've got Haifa. And on the bottom row, we've got Beirut on the left, the airport in Tel Aviv in the middle, and central Israel on the right. And it is 4:40 p.m. in Israel right now. All the previous missile and aircraft incursion alerts are now clear. Danny, if you're still in the chat, is there a government shutdown in the U.S.? Did I miss that? I know that it was close. We were approaching the deadline, but I guess I didn't see mention or follow it closely enough after that. I only ask you that because I'm seeing a report, White House press secretary blaming Democrats for intentionally causing American families and federal workers to suffer because of their reckless shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. So maybe it's just that one agency, the Department of Homeland Security, that's the shutdown. Yeah, Danny, that's what I thought. Danny's in the chat saying that the shutdown was looming. That's what I thought. I didn't hear anything after that though. I'm gonna pull this up. Reuters on X. Quote, it signals that there will be little room for compromise. PH Reuters outlines why Iran's choice of the new supreme leader puts it on a deeper collision course with the U.S. And right below that, the New York Times says the Miami Dolphins are releasing quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, which will cost them $99 million to do. Oh, let me show this. They have to pay this guy $99 million to fire him. That's why he looks really happy. There you go. Breaking news. Here is War Translated coming in on X saying President Zelensky said that Ukraine has received 11 requests from countries neighboring Iran, European states, and the United States encountering Shahed drones. We covered that yesterday. The people are reaching out to the well-established experts in drone aerial defense, Ukraine. I got a new shirt. My sister gave me a nice new shirt of St. Javelin. It's a long sleeve white shirt, bamboo shirt, and then it's got the St. Javelin logo on it, and it's got a little Ukrainian flag tag on it. I believe the proceeds of it went to buy drones, and I got to wear that shirt on a stream. I've got to be careful about what color shirt I wear. Yesterday I wore pink. Today I wore orange, and the reason for that. Normally I wear blues and greens. That's my daily. But I'm sitting in front of a green screen, and if I'm here with a green shirt or a blue shirt, certain tones of blue, I don't have a body. I just have a head, and that's going to freak people out, especially in the Philippines and Pakistan, where a large part of our audience is tuning in from. I don't want to do that. Danny says Slava Ukraini, and bamboo shoots 100%. The thing about bamboo shirts, I don't know if you've noticed this, Danny, and everyone else in the chat, and the potentially millions of people tuning in on YouTube, they don't dry as fast as cotton does. So you put a load in the laundry, which includes one bamboo shirt. They go through the washing machine, they go through the dryer, you pull out the clothes, they're crispy, except the bamboo stuff. It's still wet. Apparently the technology doesn't exist to dry my bamboo shirts. Al Jazeera is coming in with breaking news, self-claimed breaking news. The United Arab Emirates, this is 14 minutes ago, say 2 soldiers have been killed after a helicopter went down. They're saying technical malfunction. In times of war, it's hard to know whether technical malfunction means it doesn't have any engines anymore because it got blown up. Here is something from the Wall Street Journal. They say when President Trump voiced hope last weekend that the air war he was unleashing against Iran would topple the country's regime, he was making a bet against history. That's true. You can't accomplish everything strictly from the air. You can dissect a country piece by piece over time, especially if you have air superiority, which I imagine the U.S. and Israel have had for the majority of this operation. I'm sure they're flying uncontested over Iran. So you can blow stuff up, but you can't necessarily, historically, you can't take a country over without boots on the ground. And I think that, so it says, when President Trump voiced hope last weekend that the air war he was unleashing would topple the country's regime, that is not a direct quote. So there could be some context lost in that. I think that part of Trump's hope is that if he destroys enough of the military assets of the IRGC, that it opens the door for some other group of courageous people to topple the country's regime for him. I think that's part of his hope. And that hope may not be great historically, but it is better historically. And along those same lines, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA of the U.S., they spend a lot of their time thinking about how to topple a government. They've tried it a lot in the past. They've got a mixed success rate, but they have tried it a lot. They know, they seem to agree on what the steps for that are, whether it's worked or not. Let me take a look here. I'm going to go over, oil is at 101. I'm going to look to see if there's anything on Polymarket about the war. I'll throw this up. So this is, I've never actually spent time on Polymarket's site. This is their homepage. And just as luck would have it, you've got 3 Iran war related markets going on right now. The first one says, will the Iranian regime fall by June 30th? There's $12 million of action in that market. And let's see, this says 31% chance. Let's see what we see when we open this up. Like I said, I've never used Polymarket. So that is what a Polymarket looks like. Will the Iranian regime fall by June 30th? The market says there's a 31% chance, which is down from a 50% chance in the beginning of March. Oh, I apologize for that, Danny. I didn't mean to trigger you by mentioning laundry machines. I know how that can be a sensitive subject for you. What are these? So it looks like What's this? There's date options, I guess. So 8% chance by March 31st, and that is falling. The odds of that are falling. 19% chance by April 30th. 31% chance by June 30th. And 40% chance by December 31st. Now, I don't think that these future prediction markets, I don't think they're regulated. They're certainly not regulated like a casino. I think they operate as more of a commodity brokerage. But even still, I don't know that they are regulated to combat insider trading. I don't know if insider trading is actually a problem or a consideration on Polymarket. So there have been accusations in the past that these Polymarkets move very precisely and accurately leading up to an event happening. So the Polymarket knows what's going to happen before it actually does happen. And the accusations are that government insiders are benefiting from that. I don't know if that's illegal or not. I don't know. Let me go back to the homepage here if I can. U.S. forces enter Iran. So this must be ground troops. I think that anybody can create a Polymarket, which then means that the phrasing, the quality of the phrasing may not be consistent. So, if this is meant to be a legally binding contract, U.S. forces enter Iran by ... probably is not going to make the cut. Nonetheless, you've got $10 million worth of action in this market. And U.S. forces enter Iran by March 14th. What is that, Friday? 25%. By December 31st, 68%. There's Metal Pack. Yeah, Salfardo, I saw that. They did refuse. There was a Polymarket predicting the timing of the death of the previous Iran Ayatollah. I think that what I said happened did happen, where the market moved to accuracy prior to the event being announced. I don't know if that had anything to do with Polymarket refusing to pay out that market, or if they just have a policy that says we don't deal with death lists. I think that might be a reasonable policy for them to have. What's the name of that Clint Eastwood movie about the death list? Let me see. It was Axl Rose was in that. The Deadpool. So Polymarket may have a rule against Deadpools. Now, I guess you wouldn't have lost your money if they refused to pay out. I imagine they would have refunded everyone the buy-ins. You just wouldn't have made any profit. And I imagine that would have happened on both sides of the bet, the quote unquote winners and losers of that bet. Oh, look at this. They've got a section dedicated to Iran. Here's a $14 million market. Will crude oil hit $200 or $180 by the end of March? Pretty low confidence on either one of those. Those may be a little bit too high for the market to accept. Only 5% are willing to bet that oil goes over 200 by the end of March. Now, again, you get to kind of contractual terms here. by the end of March means that at any point prior to the end of March. Doesn't mean at the last minute of the last day of March. I guess poly. So I wonder how that works. If does the person who created the poly market decide which way the outcome falls, or does poly market do that? I don't know. The market is saying there's a 7% chance of an Iranian ceasefire by March 15th. So that's low odds. Will Iran close the Strait of Hormuz by March 31st? 98% yes. June 30, 99%. Now that is interesting because if this market is ongoing, then according to either the creator of this market or poly market themselves, they're saying that Iran has not yet closed the Strait of Hormuz. That's what this market is saying. And it would be a bad bet, I think, to it'd be a bad bet to book action on this market. You're either going to make 2% or 1% if it actually happens according to whatever criteria is being used to determine the outcome. It's not a good payout. Danny says, "Hey, Metal Pack," and Metal Pack replied to Danny by saying, "Now everyone here in Germany, Metal Pack's in Germany, everyone here in Germany hates electric car drivers because they don't care about the oil crisis." Well, there's always some reason to hate people that drive electric cars. I guess that's this week's reason. It's partially true. It's partially true that electric car drivers don't care about the oil crisis as much. It depends on how the electricity in your area is generated. I believe that here in Miami, I believe we're running off nuclear power. So I wouldn't expect that the Iran war is going to cause that to go up. Wouldn't expect to. But the oil crisis is going to affect much, 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 much more than the price of gasoline. It affects the price of every physical product. Every physical product. Danny, I think that it's called Vulture Point. I think it's down near Homestead. I think that's what it's called. I don't know for sure. That I'm going off memory, but that's what I think. Check it out, Danny. Let us know. Well, Danny, I don't know if they give tours, but we could take a little road trip. Like we could take a road trip and look at a fence. Fox News on X showing video. Looks like a gun camera. Israeli Air Force eliminates Hezbollah terror assets, taking out drones and missile launchers in the Middle East. Let me start this from the beginning. So that was an expensive missile hitting an inexpensive drone. Now, I don't know what happens when that drone. So that drone has 90 kilos of explosives on it. I don't know what type of explosives, but it is on fire and it is falling to the ground. We don't know when these videos were taken. Danny says, "Oh, we got rocket alerts. You can see on the map." Tel Aviv and the Lebanese border. Red alerts going on right now. When do you consider a war a world war? I was asking myself that question last week. In fact, I was asking myself, is World War I legitimately a world war? World War II was definitely a world war because it involved all the superpowers at the time, and it ranged on the European continent, the African continent, and the Asian continent. So that's definitely a world war. World War I, I don't think there was as clean of a definition of a superpower in World War I. And there were events that happened in each one of those same continents, but they were much smaller events. So Wikipedia does say that World War I qualifies as a world war, but I'm with you in questioning that. I don't think that the conflict in the Middle East right now qualifies for a world war unless either Russia or China get directly involved at a kinetic level. So far, the conflict is contained geographically. It's very contained. And there's only one superpower involved. So that's kind of my definition of what constitutes a world war. Here comes Maya, possibly from another continent himself. We just saw evidence that he might be in South Africa. And he's saying World War I is definitely a world war. Definitely a world war. Maya, we need to rely on you heavily as a military analyst, possibly a war correspondent. Let us know in the chat. We pay well, potentially millions. Still getting alerts, red alerts in the Tel Aviv area and near the Lebanese border. People were wondering about this. The U.S. may be responsible for the bombing of a girls' school in Iran that killed at least 168 people, many of them children, on February 28th. This is from sources, so that's not great. That's anonymous. Goes on to say that a U.S. assessment suggests that the United States was likely responsible. So we went from maybe responsible to likely responsible. But it did not intentionally target the school, may have hit it in error, which is what you would hope for and expect. Israel's military told CBS last week that it was not operating in the area. And President Trump said it was Iran's fault. White House spokesperson Anna Kelly told CBS News in a statement that the investigation is ongoing. There are no conclusions at this time, and it's both irresponsible and false for anyone to claim otherwise. Okay, so that's a weird post. You've got maybe responsible, likely responsible, and no one knows, and anyone who claims to know is being irresponsible. There you go. That's all in one post. Yeah, how many countries does it take to be considered a world war? That's what Maya is saying. I asked the same thing, but I was a little more specific. I said, how many superpowers does it take? Would Japan have been considered? Yeah, Japan would have been considered a superpower in World War II. Germany should have been considered a superpower. Russia demonstrated themselves to be a superpower. And I would say that the United States became a superpower as a result of World War II. I don't know that I would have considered America a superpower prior to World War II. It had the potential to be, but it hadn't had to exercise that potential, so it was unproven. Yeah, so you've got, and that's the other point that I was coming in with, the number of continents that are affected by the fighting. So that's how I'm looking at it. Number of superpowers and number of continents. And I would say that World War II is peak World War. Yeah, the United States became the superpower as a result of World War II. So, Alfredo, it's hard to say if he's coming in quoting Trump or not. He says, does it matter in the scheme of war if children died? Not really. We all know, Alfredo, we know that he's not being cold-hearted like that. We covered this at the beginning of the stream. In fact, we led with this. Iran says, let them keep playing games. Iran warns of $200 crude oil. And what we talked about at the beginning of the stream was the G7 finance ministers. Let me see if I can do those by memory. Canada, United States, UK, England, Germany, France. I'm missing one plus the EU. Let me see if I still have that. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, plus the European Union, which is mentioned as a non-enumerated member, formed the G7. And the G7 finance ministers were meeting this morning. Right when we went live, they were meeting to discuss options to cap skyrocketing energy prices. It doesn't say in the opening paragraph how they were going to do that, but we believe that they were intending to do that, or at least discussing doing that, by releasing inventory from each of their strategic petroleum reserves. And I went on record saying that that was a bad idea. Don't do it. I'm on record. Here's this guy. This is IRGC spokesman Ebrahim Zolfigari. So he is the spokesperson for the Iranian military, and said Monday, today, the U.S. has begun a new chapter in the conflict by targeting Iran's energy infrastructure. I didn't think that that was new. I thought that it started with that. That's always been happening, I thought. He says that they can afford the price of oil at $200 per barrel. Let them keep playing this game. Yeah, that's probably a good strategy for Iran to take. I mean, what he's really saying is if you attack energy infrastructure within Iran, Iran is going to attack energy infrastructure throughout the Middle East, the Gulf countries, in addition to potentially shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. And there's some level of cleverness to that because they know that they can't compete militarily with the United States or even Israel on their own. So they've got to take a different approach to this. And the economy is one way for them to do that. Here we've got Goldman Sachs analyst Don Struyven, who said on Friday, shipping has stopped. Shipping has stopped. Shipments passing through the Strait of Hormuz are down 90% from normal, which translates to 18% of the global oil supply turned off. Now, the impact of that, if you turn off 18% of the supply of a commodity, the impact on the price of that commodity is outsized to the percent that's been taken off the market. It's outsized. So oil is up about 60%, 50 or 60% in the last 10 days. It's about 3x. The price change is 3x bigger than the supply impact. I don't know, Maya. Maya's we're still working out what constitutes a world war, and we're just trying to agree on what the definition is. And I'm sure that what we're agreeing on is not the actual definition. Okay, Maya's reporting to us word on the streets in South Africa. Gas prices are going up significantly. So we've got Europe, we've got the Philippines, we've got South Africa all reporting in on the chat, letting us know that prices are going north fast, real fast. The Goldman Sachs analyst continues to say that there are pressures on the pipelines, the oil pipelines. That's moving oil without the ships. 25% of the theoretical redirection of oil from the Middle East through pipelines is being achieved, partly due to physical disruptions. Physical disruptions is another way of saying the pipeline was exploded. We estimate that only about 1 million barrels per day are coming to market through Middle East pipelines. What do we say? That the United States consumes about 10 million barrels a day of gasoline. So only enough to satisfy 10% of that demand is coming from the Middle East pipelines. They go on to say there is no quick shipping solution. Shippers are in a wait and see mode while physical risks in the Strait of Hormuz are high. And then we talked about demand destruction, and Goldman Sachs is mentioning demand destruction. It may be necessary. With no supply relief in sight, oil prices may need to go demand destruction levels even more quickly than history and simple models forecast suggests. So demand destruction is when the price goes so high that discretionary purchases and use starts to decrease, which removes support from the price. Goldman then says about the strategic petroleum reserve dumps, so taking inventory out of the reserves, it would buy time. If the disruption proves temporary, a coordinated release makes sense. If the disruption persists for months, those reserves might arguably be more valuable at higher prices or in a more acute shortage. Again, I think you don't touch the strategic petroleum reserve. You don't touch it. It's strategic. And just what Goldman Sachs' Rich Pravatsky is saying seems to ignore the purpose of it. The reserves might arguably be more valuable at higher prices. The purpose of the reserves is not to profit. It's not to buy and sell to profit. It's to keep the lights on and the engine running when everything else fails. That's what it's for. It's not to lower the price at the pump by 20 cents for a week. Don't do it. The impact of the U.S. SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is limited. Saudi Arabia is completely out of the picture. All of the spare capacity in OPEC is out of the picture. So what do? We are then left relying on demand destruction to curb. Well, another way of saying that, demand destruction is just one component in price discovery. And so if you're going to say that the approach here is to let demand destruction curb the price is going to go higher. The price has to seek out where the demand destruction occurs. And I don't know where that is. And I don't know if Goldman Sachs knows where that is. Apparently, NASDAQ is breaking the 200-day moving average on the low side. Okay, here we go. The G7 leaders met today, and apparently they reject the SPR release plan, but they stand ready. So this article in Zero Hedge, its opening claim is that this meeting of the G7 finance ministers to discuss mitigating the price of oil was a performance, was theater. It was an attempt to calm the energy markets. Let's take a look at the energy markets. The stocks, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 are reclaiming some of the price. They're not down as much as they were at session lows. And oil is about 10% higher than it opened at today. I'm not sure how they calculate this. So it says up 8.47%. I don't know if that's from Friday's close or pre-market close this morning. Pre-market was 90, and now it's $8 higher than 90. So call it, maybe it is 8%, 8.5%. That might be on pre-market close. And there is a graph going vertical. Currently touching July 2022, again, still. 120 is the local high from 2022. And what happens if we look at all? 2008, 140 looks to be all-time high, at least going back to around 1985. I think so. 2008 says financial crisis. War in Iraq was going on, but the war in Iraq had been going on. So I suppose that's financial crisis that did that. I don't know why that would have triggered oil to go up, but it would be more. It would be easier for the price of oil to break 140 today than it was to reach 140 at 2008, and that's just because of the purchasing power of the dollar. Now, the dollar is strengthening. It was strengthening at the market open. Yields are up, but not much. Yields going up will strengthen the dollar. We know oil is up. Gold is down. Gold goes down as the dollar goes up. Exchange rates are favoring the dollar. So last week, the exchange rate between the dollar and the euro was over $1.16. Now it's below that, but not by much. Let me see if I can throw that back up, which frees me up to scroll around looking for new updates. Coming up on 2 hours of streaming. As I said yesterday, I need to be able to cruise through 5 hours of these, no problem. That's what I need to be able to do. I got more alerts on the Lebanese-Israeli border. Red alerts. So the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, is claiming that Iran is targeting civilians. I don't think Iran has a particular problem doing that, but I also don't think that their munitions are very precise. But Iran was sponsoring or is sponsoring Palestine, Gaza, Lebanon, and didn't seem to have any problem with unguided rockets just being launched into Israel for years. That's how I back up my initial statement that I don't think that Iran has a particular problem targeting civilians. N12 News out of Israel is saying that 50% of Israelis who were outside of the country when the war started have returned to Israel. It's interesting. We've got a report from War Monitor that Al Arabi Al Jadid correspondent says initial reports indicate that Hezbollah fired missiles that fell in the greater Tel Aviv area. And then we've got a video right below that from N12 News in Israel. Documentation launches from Lebanon to the center of the country, which I imagine is Tel Aviv. No casualties reported. And there's a video. That rocket looks more advanced than what you would fire off the back of a pickup truck. The propulsion's still going while it's pretty high up, probably 10,000 feet, and it's still being propelled. The real low-end rockets that Hezbollah has been using in the past, where it's just a metal pipe stuffed with chemicals, and you light the fuse. The propulsion doesn't last that long, I don't think. So that looks like a more sophisticated munition. Right below that, Al Jazeera saying Iran says the Strait of Hormuz is unsafe because of the U.S. and Israel. So of the G7, OSINT Defender on X is claiming that Germany and Japan were the two voices most in favor of releasing stock from the SPRs. And I believe that Japan has the largest stockpile of petroleum reserves in the world, and which they would have to, because I believe they import 100% of their petroleum. All the rocket alerts have been cleared from Israel. CNBC headline says the Iran war has put the brakes on the next Bank of England rate cut. I suppose the rationale for that is that as oil goes up, the price of every physical product also goes up, which is inflationary by the non-traditional term, the definition. And rate cuts are also inflationary. They increase demand to buy stuff. So as long as oil's going up, the Bank of England is not going to be doing any rate cuts. And I would imagine that would apply to other central banks as well. Here's something we talked about. I mentioned that the objectives of this military action have not been consistent or clear to me from the beginning. And here we have Secretary of State for the United States, Marco Rubio, taking the opportunity to say the main objective, not the only objective, the main objective for continued U.S.-Israeli airstrikes is to destroy Iran's missile capabilities. That seems to be a moving target. The objectives, the justification, they seem to be moving targets. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, reposted on X an accusation that Iran is firing cluster bombs at Israeli civilians. That is something that if the IDF is making that accusation, I would tend to believe that accusation. Now, let me look. So, international law bans cluster bombs. But that I don't know how much that means, because it was a treaty that was agreed to and signed by 120 countries, but not the United States, not Russia, not Ukraine. I imagine not Iran. I don't know about Israel. It's not a universally accepted ban. I don't know. I don't know what the rationale for banning those are under international law. A cluster munition, to my understanding, is a single munition that contains basically hundreds of hand grenades inside. And as the munition approaches the ground, the hand grenades are ejected and spread out over an area, which doesn't cause any more damage in my mind than just a slightly bigger bomb would. You know, it's not like a chemical weapon where there's the wind moves it around. It's not as precise. So it's harder to control whether or not a chemical weapon impacts a civilian population. A cluster bomb is not that imprecise. But the IDF's taking the opportunity to repost an accusation that Iran is firing cluster bombs at civilians. I'm hitting it. I'm hitting breaking news on this one. We got word from OSINT Defender on X. ABC News is reporting that U.S. officials have intercepted an encrypted communication believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country. And law enforcement agencies have been informed of that. So what that means is the theory there is that Iran has sleeper agents embedded in countries outside of Iran who are just standing by to execute orders. You would assume orders of violence, and that this encrypted communication that was intercepted is telling those sleeper agents to wake up and act. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising. And, Donald Trump said when questioned about whether something like this will happen, he said it could, and people are going to die, and it's all worth it. Now, I don't know. None of us know what information or intelligence assessments the U.S. government, the Israeli government, and allies of both have about what was happening in Iran, what was likely to happen in Iran. We don't know. So it's a little difficult to question whether or not this was a great idea when we don't know and will never know the full picture. You just have to trust the people who are acting on that information, and I know that a lot of people don't. Alex Jones is letting everybody know. Alex Jones is letting everybody know that it has now been confirmed that the Office of National Intelligence and the Pentagon warned President Trump 1 week before the Iran war began that in most scenarios, the United States would fail massively with regime change in Iran and potentially trigger and then there's nothing else. Here, you guys want to see? There you go. There's Alex Jones. Not a super tactical update there by Alex Jones. He's vague when he wants to be, and I'd say he's being a little bit vague here. Now, to his credit, and this is a hot take, Alex Jones is right a lot of the time. Alex Jones is right a lot of the time. The way that he presents things makes it hard to believe a lot of the times. But if you go back on his track record, he's been right a lot. That's just the way it is. Here's footage out of Tel Aviv, which we wouldn't get any other way than a person with a cell phone. So that is claiming to be an impact in Tel Aviv. That looks like a strike impact, not an interception. An interception would be higher off the ground, I would think, and it wouldn't have that color smoke. Here's another shot of that from War Monitors on X. And it looks like we've got interceptions. These are all less than a half hour old. So interceptions above Tel Aviv in broad daylight. No reports of casualties so far as of 28 minutes ago. Danny is in the chat saying breaking news. He's got a lot of breaking news. 3 different topics here. The dehumidifiers and fans have been removed from his house. Breaking news. Also, new user-generated badges are available for sale in the store at Tangle.com. He's listing that as breaking news. And it is. And finally, Danny is coming in to let us know that only 1 million Bitcoin remained to be mined. The 20 millionth Bitcoin was just mined. Thank you, Danny. Here we've got War Monitors coming in with breaking news. Hezbollah successfully hit a radar facility in Beit Shemesh. That's breaking news. I'm sure the impact of that's going to be nothing. I mean, when you're watching live feeds from of the Beirut, Lebanon skyline, you constantly hear a buzzing sound, which is Israeli drones just circling Lebanon. They are not blind to what's happening, even if they lose a single radar installation. I don't think it matters at all. The markets are recovering. The oil market is now 96, 95, 96. It opened at 90. It went as high as 104 during this live stream. The equity markets are up from their lows. So everyone's settling into the trading day on Monday. And that's probably a good time to start to wind down this stream. Let me see if I have any notes from anybody else. Well, I'll tell you that more people watched this live stream on YouTube today than they did yesterday. Not only did more people watch, but they watched for a longer time. So that's progress. We're going to keep plugging away at that. We're going to get our subscribers up. We're going to get our audience up. It could take months. It could take years. The question is, do I have the endurance? I have in the past. Don't question my resolve. So I'm gonna wrap up this stream. That is how long are we on? 2 hours, about 2.5 hours. Salfredo, you're probably the reason that YouTube's performing as well as it does. I appreciate that. Yeah, go over there. Danny says hit the thumbs up on the YouTube stream. There's a link to that. In fact, let me see if I can put a link in the chat. There you go. Looking at my face on the YouTube stream, I need to adjust either my color or my lighting. I don't like the way that I look. All right, I'll leave you with that. And if anything big happens today or ever, I will do my best to come online and start to cover it for you guys, dig into the news, and do long-form, real-time updates. Danny says he thinks I look fine. Thank you, Danny. So until then, I will sign off. Talk to you guys later.